Hello, folks. Welcome to episode 12, or you might say episode 1 of the revised new show format, Hard Truth. I have a new co-host.
Yeah.
His name is Phil. I'm not going to try and pronounce his surname. I just said to him, I think it's Swedish. I haven't a fucking clue.
Yeah, thank you very much. Philip Ideson.
Philip
But, you know,
Ideson.
I've had, being here in the States as well, I've had 1,000,001 different variations of that. Very few of them, actually.
The Yanks calling you different names.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Well, I always go by like people like Darragh. I go, just call me D. It's easy. You know what I mean? Obviously, El Presidente, D, whatever you want. So give you guys a bit of a backstory to this. Phil lives out here in Orlando. He contacted me a couple of weeks ago and he said, look, I like your show. I've got an idea to help revise the format. He probably sensed maybe I was losing a bit of interest in it. Well, I wasn't really, but the regular weekly episode was becoming every 2-3 weeks, and that's not fair to your subscribers. You know, you got to put content out every week. And Phil said, look, can we meet for a coffee? I'm a Bradford fan. So I said, look, you know, for your sins, no problem. We'll meet for a coffee. And Phil's obviously a successful guy, owns his own business in Orlando, has a wife, 2 kids.
Yeah.
We had a coffee, and he said, look, let's look at the format of the show. What you need is a co-host to bounce off. We won't say sidekick because that's probably not PC in like 2020.
Yeah, we'll go with co-host.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Co-host is easier. So, and this is the first kind of episode of the revised version. You call it episode 12 on the podcast itself. And we're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about football. We're going to talk about life, like I've done in my podcast throughout lockdown and coronavirus. For those of you who follow me on social media, obviously DMAC102 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and everything else. This show is always about fan engagement, sports engagement, people engagement. We've always said, you have any questions, queries, subjects you want covered, people you want us to speak to, we can always do interviews. You can email me at realdarragh@gmail.com or Phil at
Philip at procurement.com, which is actually my business one. But we've set up an email as well for the show itself. So that's going to be contact at hardtruthfootball.com, and we'll give that out at the end of the show as well.
And Phil's going to give the whole design it's going to give a bit of redesign, and obviously, you know, the logo, the whole shebang. I'll be very honest, I'm very surprised I was doing in the charts. You know, in most of the charts it was top 5, the UK, football, places like Malaysia, Scandinavia. So obviously there are some people out there bored enough to listen to my dribble.
Yeah, the lockdown.
Yeah, during the lockdown, yeah. The figures will probably drop off, now that everyone's back out there again, you know. And again, to all my brothers and sisters in the UK, I know you've been out of lockdown now for, I think it's 18 days, so really happy for you. Very little panic porn with spikes and infections and second waves and third waves. It looks like you're getting back to life as normal. Bar having to wear a mask all of a sudden, I think, on the 24th, which is very bizarre. Hopefully I'm going to be over there with you in a week. I leave on the 29th, and I'll be in the UK for a good 6-7 weeks on football business, so really looking forward to that. So what are we going to cover today, Phil?
Yeah.
You're the co-host. Come on, excite the listeners.
So we reached out, you know, we used social to solicit a bunch of questions. We have more questions than we could possibly answer, but that's a good thing. And I don't want that to dissuade anybody from asking questions in the future, because we're keeping a running kind of list of all the things that we can come back to.
Yeah.
You know, we're really going to break it down into a few different sections.
Okay.
And what I wanted to do today, essentially to set the scene, is we're going to talk about 2 or 3 kind of main topics, which are the topics of the day.
Yep.
Then we've got some questions specifically we'll go into from listeners that we that came across to both of us, and then wrap it up. So main questions. The first question that I wanted to talk about was salary cap. So where are we?
Well, I'll tell you where we are. Fucking hell. I was like, when you sent this over that you wanted to talk about it, I actually do what I haven't always done, is like fully read all the information. It's like, I'll hold it up. It's like 2 pages of like detail. It's a little bit complicated. I had to read it a few times. I understand the idea behind it. I'm a proponent of a salary cap. But, you know, if you go back to the things I was saying early on in coronavirus and COVID, saying for the future of football, what's about to come down the pipe, we needed a realignment, we needed a readjustment.
Yeah.
And when you hear clubs can't come up with 300-400 grand to finish 20% of the season, which is, you know, people say I'm still bitter about, there's definitely a necessity for a salary cap.
Yeah.
Because if clubs are that short of money, whether it's in COVID or out of COVID, it means there's too much overspending going on in football.
Yeah, so it's a week-to-week business, isn't it? For
it is a week-to-week business. Football's like that. It's like no other business. You know, it's one week you're begging, borrowing, and stealing. The next week you could win an FA Cup tie and you're flush. You know, 1 month you sell a player, another month you're buying a player. It's a mad business. It's a mad industry. It's not for the faint-hearted. I've always said anyone thinking about buying a football club, fucking run a mile. Don't know what you're thinking, but it's great fun.
Yeah.
And if you get it right, it's even better fun. And the salary cap obviously has been controversial with some clubs, and I understand that the Portsmouths, the Sunderlands, the bigger clubs of the world. My idea originally I'm going to talk about my idea versus what they're doing. My idea for a salary cap, and if I can remember the document I wrote and I sent to everyone about, it was 3 months ago. And I think I published it out there on one of my social media feeds, what my idea was. My idea was based on, not necessarily turnover, but it was along the lines of, if you were a football club that turned over £3-4 million a year, give me a couple of clubs like that in League 1 or League 2.
Yeah, 3 or 4 million. I'm not, well, to be honest, you think of mid-table Shrewsbury, let's say.
Shrewsbury probably a bit more because they're quite well run and they've got a nice stadium. Let's go to say Rochdale.
All right.
So let's say Rochdale turns over £3-4 million in any given year. So the idea behind my salary cap was you would cap them around in that 1.7 to 2.5 million mark. So that's the cap.
Based on the percentage of the revenue, essentially.
Not necessarily, because that goes back to the salary, what we had previously, where you were allowed to spend 55 and 60%. Okay. I almost wanted, it was like markers. Yeah. So it was like, if you're under 5 million, you can spend 2.5.
Like brackets, basically.
Correct. If you hit 7.5 million in turnover, you can spend 4 million.
Yeah.
If you hit 10 million, you can spend 6. If you hit 15 million, you spend 8. Yeah. So it incentivized clubs to actually increase their revenues commercially, exponentially, sell players better, have better academies. So the more you created, you fell into a different cap. So for example, Posh last year probably turned over 6 million.
Yeah.
So our turnover spend would fall in that 2.5 million bracket.
So you're incented then to create more revenue.
So if we'd sold a player and our turnover for this year was 10, next year we would be allowed to spend in the 4 million bracket. So it was kind of like that. So what the Football League have done is, obviously they've tried to simplify it, but they've gone, it's hardcore. They've gone, I think it's 1.5 million in League 2 and it's 2.5 million in League 1. Now, when I say it's hardcore, we as a club can cope because of the way we operate. But a lot of clubs can't. And I totally sympathise with a Portsmouth and Sunderland. These are big clubs with fan bases of Portsmouth would get 16,000 to 20,000, like Bradford would.
We get
Sunderland get 30, 35, 40,000. And suddenly you're asking these clubs who are already paying players 7, 8, 9, 10 grand a week, you got 12 months to get your house in order and you can only spend 2.5 million. They're going to be flush with cash.
So and you've got these multi-year contracts, and you may get so from what I understand, you kind of get the dispensation for the first year based on the salaries.
You can. You've got. I'm reading it here, and you've got about 12 months to get your house in order. We as a club usually sign players in 3-year contracts, so even us in year 2 could be in trouble. Staying within that 2.5 million, we would have to do some serious revisions by next summer if we're still in League 1. We're up against it. We're also a football club that likes to spend transfer fees. Because that's our model. We spend fees, we'll spend money, we speculate to accumulate, and it works very well for us, as everyone knows, with the model we have as a transfer model. And that could also be an issue for us too. Because last year, for example, I think we spent nearly 2 million in transfer fees, but we brought in 4 or 5.
Now, do those transfer fees have to come in within the cap?
Everything counts.
But they're not counted if you sell on.
No.
So you sell somebody for 3 million after buying him for 1,
there's where the intricacies need to be fixed and adjusted for me. So we're all for voting for the salary cap, but I still think adjustments need to be made. And unfortunately, as it stands right now, where it favours us is that anyone under the age of 21 doesn't count. So we have right now in our squad of 26 for next season, I think we have 11 players under the age of 21. So they don't count. Doesn't matter what they're on, what wages they're on. I think if we go and spend money on an under 21-year-old, that doesn't count. It's only over 21.
When they turn 21, it could be a problem though.
Right. Again, I'm trying to read through it. If you'd signed them already and then they turn 21, there's their salary, and from what I'm reading, it does count, and that is an issue. But usually, in fairness, when you sign a player under 21, you're not paying them big bucks. Unless they come from a Premier League club, they're released. I'll give you an example. We have a player was at a top 4 club. His agent now thinks he's the next Ronaldo. He's been dumped by the Premier League club. He's a free, and his agent straight away is out there asking for 2.5 grand a week. This player was on 900 quid a week in the Premier League, and now after a pandemic, the agent wants a fucking 200% rise. And you go, get the fuck.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. I've got all these clubs. I said, great, fucking get them in the car and bring them there. You're full of shit. Agents need a readjustment themselves. So you've got that. You've got basically anyone under 21 doesn't count. They're going to have a squad limit at a maximum of 20 players over 21.
Okay.
So that stops clubs harvesting too many players and signing too many players. And by the way, and this is where the PFA and players need to get their act together and help with pay reductions and wages, because something like this is going to make it even more difficult for people to get employment.
Yeah.
And there's over 1,500 people unemployed this summer in football, and agents still.
Because now you're capping squad size.
This is ridiculous. This is where they need to get their act together on wages. Wages are out of control. Yeah. This has been brought in. This is like a bite of revenge for the ever increasing wages, agents' fees.
You took advantage of us. You had all the leverage.
Correct,
basically.
and it's ending now. Yeah. This salary cap will end that leverage because you're going to have X amount of players out there who used to be on 3-4 grand a week, where clubs will go, "We'd love to pay it to you, but we can't."
Yeah. Now you have the big guy who
can't do it.
It's like having the boss that you go to who says, "No, I can't do the deal." Well, physically,
legally, can't do it. Yeah. Get the fuck.
Yeah.
So you go through all the different things. Look, any income generated from players going out on loan, that will count. So if you loan a player out and you get 100 grand, it goes back into the cap and you can spend it.
Okay.
But any player over 21, if you pay wages, taxes, bonuses, image rights, agents' fees, other fees, expenses, signing on fees, it all counts directly to all registered players' permanent loans. So you get a young Premier League player in and they want you to pay rent for the player, and rent can cost you sometimes 30 grand a year. Yeah. That counts towards your 2.5 million. Yeah. And this again will help with a readjustment with Premier League clubs and loans, which I've been screaming for.
Yeah, those loan fees are going to go, right?
Correct. They're open to, at the moment, the payments directly linked to a club's progression in cup competitions will be excluded. So if you earn $1 million from the cup, it's excluded. If you have to pay players $1 million in bonuses, it's excluded.
Okay.
But like you said there, if you earn loads of money from a transfer or whatever, it doesn't help you with the cap.
Right.
So you'd have to reinvest that money elsewhere. So that's where you have to get creative and make yourself a really good self-sustainable football club. Look, there's lots of good stuff about it that'll make football a lot more sustainable.
Yeah.
There's lots of shitty stuff about it that the bigger clubs are going to scream about. Yeah. So I'm not sure how long it will last. I think it'll get voted through. I think it will be a rocky couple of years with people screaming about it and probably lawsuits and legal suits and the PFA up in arms and all of that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm all for something new. As we saw happen with points per game, that was something new.
Yep.
We got shafted. Let's see how this whole works. You know what I mean? And there's other rules in here as well. I mean, like I said to you, there's whole 2 pages worth of it. But right now, our whole thing right now is not planning for this year. It's getting next year in order.
Yeah.
Because we're still a League One football club. We're going to have to get ourselves in a position where maybe we're carrying people on too much money.
Yeah.
So that's a conversation I have to have with players.
Yeah.
People need to realise that. I've been warning about this for months. So like I said to you, I think they've taken it a bit too far. I think there should have been dispensation for turnover-related performance. Like I said to you about, if a club goes out and brings in an X...
Right, you're generating your own revenue.
You can spend a bit more. So you're rewarding people for being a better business.
Yeah.
You open a shop in the corner, you're usually rewarded for
you reinvest
turnover.
back in your business.
Correct. And people have asked the question, I think I saw an email about, what will this happen in football? So what will happen is probably, if people who do make a profit and they sell players, they've got cup runs, they've got choices. They can reduce club debt, i.e. pay off creditors, i.e. pay off people who own the club and reduce that leverage that owners have on football clubs. They can possibly buy stadiums back. They can spend more money on stadium facilities. They can spend more money on their academy. I'm a big proponent, as are my partners, of the academy. So I would say spend money there, because the under 21 rule is you could produce a lot of good academy players, and we're probably going to have like 6 or 7 of them in our squad next year. Really exciting. So you'd have to reinvest back in there, and that's the way you do it. So I guess it's going to take some creativity, to navigate through the minefield that's coming.
Right. You think like the Major League Baseball salary cap, and it's not a hard cap.
I've always loved the US way of doing it,
and all
in
that
the
kind of
NFL.
stuff. But you have you're investing in the youth, so you've got all this youth system that comes up for years. Like all this money goes into the youth system. When players come in, like you said, they're lower wages, and then you end up spending the money that you've got on the 3 or 4 marquee players.
Correct.
And I wonder if we're seeing that as an example from Bolton at the moment. Kind of pushing the boat out, going and bringing in some, I'm sure, players who are still on good money, especially because they're signing them early in the window.
I think they've tightened their belt, but they are trying to get in ahead, and I don't know how that counts for this year. There's also a tax here. If people want to overspend, the punishment can be points deduction, but it can also be £3 for every £1 overspent. So if you want to spend $1 million over, you're going to have to pay $3 million in, which goes to the EFL. And I'm hoping that money gets spread to all the
redistributed back to everyone in the division.
In the old days, all these fines in the Champ and whatever else got spent in the Premier League and to a charity of their choice. it never got sent back into the Football League, which is fucking ridiculous.
Which seems like that's a fair way. So you're still making a business. So let's say Sunderland, just because of how high their wages are.
Sunderland say it sell out to a sheik.
Yeah.
He wants to spend 10 million.
Yeah.
He's got to spend 30 to do the 10.
Yeah.
The 30 goes back in the Football League, helps all these clubs who are in trouble, happy days.
And that's his business decision. Like, that's his money. He wants to do that.
Look,
and,
a sheik spending $5,000, me spending $5,000 in a casino, you cry if you lose it. A sheik, it'd be like me and you buying a Coke.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day. So yes, or a Rush Logalark, whoever it might be, within reason. Now I don't know what it's capped at. It just says here an overrun tax is payable to be a staggered basis for £3 for every £1. Clubs exceeding the overrun will be referred to an independent disciplinary commission. So again, people need transparency and clarity.
Yeah.
There's a big problem in the Championship at the moment. And the big problem in the Championship is, and this is where I was laughing the other day saying, you know, well, maybe points per game would have been a fairer way, like joking, being sarcastic, but you've got clubs at the bottom of the Championship, like Barnsley and Luton, are fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
And they've got a great chance of staying up. You then have Wigan, who've obviously gone into administration, and if Wigan win and they get a 12-point deduction, they're going to stay up. But you need to know that before the games tomorrow night. You've then got Sheffield Wednesday, Derby, other clubs, Birmingham, who apparently have issues with stadiums, the way they bought the stadiums, and there's possible disciplinary, there's points deductions.
Yeah.
Again, you need to know. I mean, Lee Boyer was on the media earlier, and he was saying, and fair what he was saying, I need to know at half-time, do I need to change my formation to win? I need to know.
What am I playing for here?
What am I playing for? And if we get relegated in 2 weeks, then we're given a reprieve. You know, and the Football League needs to get...
We can't plan for next season either.
No, you can't. They need to get their act together. You know, they've had like 3 months. They've known about Sheffield Wednesday and Derby and Birmingham, and now the Wigan thing happened 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. What does it take to get a panel together? You know, use the rules that you've got at your disposal and come out with a decision. Why does it take months to make these things happen? I never get that. I'm always scratching my fucking head why it takes so long, because I'm a doer.
Yeah.
If I want something done, I want it done today.
Yeah.
So we know the facts. We know we need to give them time to send in a legal letter with all the reasons not to deduct them points, and we did this right and we did that right, and there needs to be an investigation. In the Derby, in the Wednesday, in the Birmingham case, and if I'm wrong about any of those clubs and there's nothing going on, I apologise, but from what reading in the press, they bought stadiums, or they sold stadiums to the owners, and they were trying to...
The way it's amortised and the rent payments.
Yeah, but you know, I haven't got a problem with any of that, and I think it's like been overblown, and I don't think clubs should be deducted serious points, maybe a financial penalty for that. But you know what? You've had months now to investigate all that. You've had months now to have panels, discussions, bring out the verdict. You know, if the EFL had some cojones, tomorrow morning they'd put out a statement and say, look, Wigan are getting 12 points regardless of the result. Birmingham are getting this or not. Wednesday, Derby, we found nothing wrong, whatever, and let everyone know. It's very unfair to finish a competition in that way, where players are going to be depressed and then 2 days later they could be reprieved. And then if they're reprieved and that club then appeals it, like City did the repeal recently, suddenly you're back in League One. So you can't live your life like that, Phil. Well, I can't live my fucking life like that. I'm one of those people, I need to know. If it's bad news, tell me. If it's good news, great, but I need to know.
Well, the worst thing that can happen then is you get into a legal minefield of everyone suing each other.
Absolutely.
And, you know, you're already seeing rumblings of, well, you know, my lost revenue if I go from the Championship into League One because action wasn't taken.
100%.
It's a minefield.
So it's like EFL, I'm a member. You work for all the clubs. Yes, I've been angry with the EFL about stuff, but I think they've got some good people running it. But you got to show the goodness now. Rick, you know, the new CEO, I forget his name.
Yeah, Dave.
Dave, yes, I know Dave, yeah.
Ex-City, Bradford.
Yeah, and Dave's seen him on the Zoom calls recently, whatever else. He looks like he's got the minerals. So you guys need to show you got the minerals. And you need to be decisive. What is it with all the indecision? I don't fucking get it. It's like, we were all told like a start date, and this was going to be the one. And then it was like last week I was being put back to the Premier League finish. I'm sick of being the poor fucking relative. Like, we're running a business here. And by the way, and I've said this for a long time, the EFL's not small. This is one of the biggest leagues in the world. Like, I'm proud to own a football club in League One. When I go on holiday, I'm like, yeah, I'm a chairman of a League One football club. I'm not bragging, but I'm proud. People are like, what league is that? And I'm like, look, it's the 3rd division in England, but it's still one of the oldest leagues in the world.
People know about it.
Of course they fucking do.
You know, I had a business call a couple of days ago, and I was talking to somebody who was Argentinian, you know, River Plate supporter, and he asks, who do you support? And I say, well,
hash, by the way.
You know, I support Bradford. It's like he still knew everything about the EFL. He knew about Bradford. You know, somebody that's grown up in Argentina.
Club.
You know, word still travels. I mean, EFL is still a really strong brand.
Of course it does. And wherever I go and put on a football club, football, you know, where it doesn't matter if you're in the Premier League or League One or League Two. And it's like, show some fucking pride here. Like, you know, the whole palaver with the points per game that was had, show some fucking pride. I mean, what on earth? We are Mickey Mouse competitions here. This is League One. This is League Two. You know, Championship. Show some bollocks. I mean, you know, this is what someone said to me yesterday. You know, when they're going to go on strike, get the fuck. Well, they get back to playing football.
Yeah.
Like, and get your house in order. Like, make these decisions. Be quick. Be decisive. Let everyone know where they stand. Half of the problem is when you leave things out there and they drag on for a period of time, it drives people up the wall. Yeah. I'll probably run through some subjects we're about to cover anyway.
Yeah, no, and I want to wait until I jump into those because I think there's a lot more to go into. I do want to say, from a uninformed supporter perspective of Dave Baldwin, for example, coming into the EFL, I think that the EFL is in really good hands. You know,
you like Dave?
Yeah, he did a great job with City. He was really part of, our kind of years of getting to the League Cup final, of really building a sustainable business.
Very
because,
good.
you know, we're a business at the time that didn't have a lot of money. It was local owners. We were generating, you know, we weren't really speculating. We were selling young players to fund cup
was this
runs.
when Julian and...
Julian and Mark Lawn.
Mark were there, good guys. Yeah. I always remember going and you got to cup finals, you got to semi-finals. I know you made like 3-4 million one year.
Yeah.
I know they ran a really, really good ship. I know they pretty much like cancelled, got rid of all the debt out to them through the cup runs.
Yeah.
And I think the fans loved it. It was really, really well
It just felt like it was a really, like, our club was back.
Yeah, you had your golden period for a little while. And then there was promise of, we're going to the next level.
Yeah, and of course...
football is football.
Of course, we did go to a different level. And it's been pretty depressing ever since then. But no, I've only got good things to say about
But you know what? When I say to every football fan who gets depressed, and I've been... The shit that's happened to me in football and Peterborough and everything else is, don't be depressed for too long. Because the beauty about football as football fans is, you can see it with fans. You get golden periods. You know, Lincoln, when I first came in, were a big club in the league. And as we rose through the leagues, Lincoln fell out. And they were in no man's land for a few years. Yeah. And they got a good owner, good setup behind the scenes. They got the Cowley brothers in. And look at what's happened for their fans. Yeah. They went from 2,000 fans to suddenly 9,000-10,000 selling out every week, winning cup competitions, winning league titles. They're in League One. Yeah. So as much as you can be depressed today, you've always got to look back and go.
You know, I always tell people, football, you know... maybe this is just the psyche of a lower league supporter as well. Generally, it's like don't necessarily
you expect the worst.
Yeah, but when the best happens, I'm always kind of careful and like don't think that you've made it because
you're waiting for the rug to be pulled.
Exactly.
I've been there. I'm telling you, as an owner, it's worse. Yeah. When you're paying the bills, trust me, those fears, those things. I've never been OCD. Football turned me into an OCD freak. You ask my wife. I am OCD freak. We win games, I try and keep everything the same wherever I'm watching a game, right to the pen on my desk. I'm a nightmare.
I'm sure everyone listening has like family traditions. I know we do even in our family. My parents' family, they still go down to all the games, even though I'm here in the States. And you know, same earrings or same scarf or same whatever it may be if you win.
Same shoes.
You don't want to curse anything.
I always say to my missus, you know what I mean, listen, we had a good session last night and we won today, so we've got to do that before every game.
Until you lose next time.
Absolutely. I'll take one for the team, baby. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm with you on that.
I want to just have one last question on salary cap. So how in stone is it in terms of, look, this is the proposal, you can't touch it, we're going to vote on it.
I think this is happening, yeah.
Is it still going backwards and forwards?
They put in here on the 20th of July, the meeting meets to review the proposed salary cap rules. 21st, if approved by the board, rules and papers sent out. The 29th of July, formal vote.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure why it takes 8 days after the 21st when it's approved by the board. Again, this is what drives me mad. Well, what's for the 8 days? People need to sign players. People need to get in gear. So the 29th, you'll know.
If you sign anyone between now and the 29th, what happens? Are they going to give you the dispensation for a year because you signed them before the salary cap came in? Or?
I believe so here. Player contracts entered into and provided to the EFL on or before the 29th will be included as committed contracts and capped as relevant divisional average salary.
Okay.
The relevant divisional, I told you, is very complicated. Yeah. Divisional salary for this season is 113 grand as an average salary. Next season, 125 grand.
Right.
And this is in League One. So I'm not, again, I'll have to get my football secretary to explain that in English to me.
Basically sounds like you sign somebody and let's say that the average wage is 10 grand a month. And you sign them on 15 grand, you're only going to get 10 grand counted towards the cap.
I think you're going to get a lot of dispensation, because of the year. Plus you've got clubs coming down. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of readjustment. And you can ask at Portsmouth and Sunderland who are carrying... Portsmouth not so much because they're really well run.
Sunderland still got the hangovers from the Premier League.
They've got players on massive wages. You know, how can they get in gear even in the next 12 months if they've got players carried? It's going to be very difficult. So there's going to have to be exceptions, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? Now, for the other clubs out there, like the Salfords and the Fleetwoods, who do pay good wages and whatever else, it's and they've got very wealthy owners. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see where they go with it.
Yeah, because their model is dead. I mean, and
correct.
you think about them.
And that's the other thing you just mentioned there. It brings everything into it, like the NFL, which I love. It's almost like a level playing field. Yeah. And I was kind of licking my lips when it was first introduced, because I've always been very good with our model of being a smaller club competing with the big boys because of our model. And I look at this and go, well, actually, this brings the bigger clubs back in our realm. And if we do what we do really well and continue doing it well, this could favour us. Yeah. And even going up to the Championship, where I think 14 million or whatever, again, from being a club in the Championship with, say, a £7 million wage bill, up against clubs with £28 million wage bills. Now we're only up against 14. Yeah. So again, does this open the realms of possibility? Forget Peterborough, club like ours, getting that magic run and going all the way to the top. Right.
Yeah, because that gap between League One and Championship has just got further and further and further.
Having been there and played, it was the most it's an exhilarating league, but it was the most exhausted I'd ever been in football. You'd look at your fixtures and go, right, we've got Derby on Saturday and we've got Leeds on Wednesday, and then followed by that with Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, it was just like land of the giants, and it was great, but it was exhausting. I mean, you'd be exhausted thinking about, oh my God, you win points, you win games, and we held our own, and we had a very young squad, and we were very unlucky. Well, I don't want to go back over an old territory, but this gap, this salary thing might just introduce more fairy tale stories. Right. Maybe.
Yeah, it gives you the better chance of staying there when you get there.
Look, it's not going to kill anyone. I understand it's going to hurt people. I understand there's going to be a lot of animosity from the bigger clubs because you're voting for this. I understand there's going to be a lot of moaning and bitching, but it won't put clubs out of business. Right. And the key to all of this is, because I keep hearing this scream now for the last 2 months, and why we finished our season in League One, this club's gone out of business, this club's can't pay their bills, and da-da-da-da-da. Okay, great. Well, now we're going to bring this in, and maybe we'll have a playing field, and maybe people can pay their bills, and maybe people can play without crowds for a month or two. Yeah. And let's see what happens.
Why, you mentioned then about the great fear of coronavirus was everyone's going to go bankrupt. Yeah. And, knock on wood, we really haven't seen that yet. Sure. But I say yet. Is that because it was a false...
misinformation during the age of COVID. And not just to do with the disease, but to do with football and businesses and everything else. So much bullshit out there. I always say facts matter. And I think everyone was like, oh, football clubs and no income, no this, no whatever. But everyone forgot that, okay, you got a grace period to pay your PAYE, which means you had like 3-4 months. Yeah. You didn't have to pay it. That's a massive amount of your wage bill. Yeah. That's almost like 45% of your wage bill that you don't have to pay for a period of time. You got dispensation on your VAT. Yeah. So your VAT's every quarter. So say your VAT in June or whenever it is, July, was like 200 grand. Yeah. You were forgiven till the following quarter. So you were putting things down the road. For the clever clubs who did deals with their players, you deferred wages. Yeah. You then had a lot of sensible clubs. I call them sensible, and we're naive because we didn't furlough players because we believed the EFL when they kept telling us that we would get back to playing. Yeah. So you had lots of clubs out there, let's say Accrington and Stanley or Rochdale, who basically furloughed players. Now, I'm not sure if they paid the difference. If you furloughed and got your $2.5 grand a month, and the player was on $4 grand, we as a club, when we eventually furloughed, we paid the difference. Yeah. If you didn't pay the difference, I think contractually the player could walk. Right. That's why we have assets.
Yeah, you got to settle your football.
You got to be careful. So we have a lot of assets. Peterborough's different from most clubs. We went into lockdown with players worth millions and millions. Yeah. So you suddenly play furlough games or contract law, and you've got high value assets worth millions. You can walk. So we pay the difference. You're continuing
to invest in your assets, basically.
Of course we do. So a lot of clubs suddenly didn't have wages to pay. They didn't have PAYE to pay. They didn't have VAT to pay. I would assume if they have rent bills, they probably deferred them. So there's like a 5-month deferment. And I always said this was down the road for the issues. And I always said this would happen in July, August, September. And we've done our cash flow. And as it happens, August, September and October are horrific. Of course they're horrific because you've all the back bills of we owe player wages, we owe the PAYE, we owe the VAT. The EFL didn't do a deal with the government on giving us more time, which surprised me, because we're one of the biggest industries for income produced for the taxman. So why would you want to put pressure on that industry? You'd want to help them. Yeah. So we've got a lot of bills to pay, which we'll pay, me and my partners, and the club will. Some clubs might have a problem with that if their bills are bigger. And this is why I said that bailout I've been screaming about for months, it needed to be in place for the end of July. And I don't know where it is. I've been saying it every time, talking, and we've got to wait till the Premier League finish, and but but there needs to be a bailout and help.
Yeah. So it's coming. The problems are coming.
It's coming. Now, some clubs maybe not so much, because a lot of lower league football clubs do 12-month contracts or multiplicity contracts where you have players for 6 months.
Yeah.
And those were the clubs who basically wanted a vote to stop playing, because they knew they were going into a summer with no players.
Yeah.
So pick a club in League One. They have a squad of 22 players. 6 are on loan from the Premier League. They've gone back. Premier League's probably forgiven the loan wages, so they don't have that bill. The other 16 players, probably 5 of them are contracted for year 2.
Yeah.
The other 10 or 11 have an option. Club didn't take up the option. So you got these clubs going into the summer who don't have any football players.
They'll probably bring them back if they have once football resumes, but
maybe.
They're not carrying the contract.
Or they'll sign new players, but they're not carrying the contracts. You just said it there. You've hit the nail on the head. We were carrying 24 contracts because we do it differently. Yeah. And we try and do it properly, but we're the ones punished for doing it properly. These clubs basically don't have any players. So your players are your main expense. Now, put in with that, and this is where I was arguing about the football deals. You get about $1.5 million in football money. Solidarity, TV money, everything. Yeah. So they've still got that revenue. Yeah. They've still got other bits and pieces of revenue, commercial, sponsorship, who are still paying. So these clubs, these lower league clubs, they were probably getting a surplus of profit. So they weren't really in trouble. And if they haven't got big deferment bills in August, they'll be fine. Yeah. Now, the bigger clubs might have a bigger problem, like at Peterborough, whose budget might have an excess of 3 million or whatever that the owners have to cover. Yeah. Times like this, that excess becomes bigger. Yeah. But luckily, I've got good partners, so there's no issue with that, and we run a really, really good ship. And we've had people do deals, we've had people defer, we've had a really good council of help. You know, we've got a lot of things.
And you've got
place.
assets if it comes to
and
it.
We've never worried. We've got an asset right now that every club in the country is falling over trying to buy. So we're not losing sleep. And behind that, we've a young 17-year-old who, even during COVID, we had Premier League clubs trying to take the mick and offer like lower figures. You know what I mean? So we know we're in a good place because of the policy I put in place 15 years ago, and it's never changed. We invest. So, and it won't change going forward. You know, I'm drawing up lists of the next gems, the next people, the next whatever. So I guess the football landscape will be interesting come September, October. Now, if the Football League come with a bailout, and the one I'd kept suggesting and pushing for and how it was done, we're going to be all okay. Yeah. But there will be a few clubs who probably get in trouble.
Yeah. Let's, I guess, watch this space.
Correct.
You know, see how it unfolds. And that really goes into the next topic that I wanted to ask about, is getting started again. Yeah. You know, we had a number of questions around firm dates for the start of the season. It seems to be a moving target. But
it's frustrating. We've been talking about this throughout July, and we got the hint it was going to be the 12th of September on good authority. So we made the decision. Usually our players have a 6-week pre-season. Because our players haven't played for 5 months, our manager begged us, the owners, can he have 8 weeks instead of 6 weeks? So that involved us bringing the players back last Friday to test and pay to test them. Yeah. Test them on Friday and test them on Monday. We've been given an inside scoop that hopefully testing will stop next week. Okay. That's been put back a week, so hopefully it will stop.
It's hopefully it's sooner than later.
Yeah, because you're paying, you know, what is it, £100 a test, so it's costing us nearly £7,000 a week to test. So hopefully the testing will stop. That's still no reason for us not to start our season. Right. So even if testing goes down to once a month or once every 2 weeks, so be it. Clubs have to get on board with that. That's the world we live in. So we brought all our players back. We brought our young players back 2 weeks ago to give our manager 2 extra weeks with like 10 of the best young players we have. That was invaluable. We now brought the rest of our squad back on Friday. They tested. Then on Monday they tested again. And Monday afternoon they trained. Yesterday they trained. Our players are back in full training. We've already booked a camp for August. We're going to St. George's. We're going to a top camp for 5 days. Usually we go to Portugal. We're trying to go to Scotland, but the usual scaremongering and problems and the panic porn. Are you getting an airplane and blah, blah, blah. So we decided,
at least you're going somewhere.
We're going somewhere. That's why I'm going over to England next week. We're going to a camp in the middle of August. We've already organised 7 pre-season games. Yeah. We've got games in the camp.
Interesting.
Yeah. Our final game, I think, of pre-season is going to be at our stadium against Coventry. Okay. And the reason we wanted that was because we wanted a really good championship team and a team that plays football. Yeah. And Coventry are one of the best. And that's going to be a cracking game. So as far as pre-season goes, we've done it all. Yep. We've prepared, we've organised, we've booked, we've paid, we've got everyone back in testing, our sports scientists, we've hired a new assistant manager, we got players we're selling, we've got players we're buying. We're operating like a football team. Yep. Now I don't know how many other clubs in League One. I said to my manager yesterday, because he was on asking for something else, and I said, listen, I said, I don't think there's any other League One club in the fucking country is back training. So be thankful for what you have. Stop your belly aching, because everyone else is still sat in their arse at home. Yeah. You're back.
Yeah.
And for that, I want the double this year.
Well, just that 2-week head start, because I read that we were starting to talk about it probably coming back next week, and I'm sure that we're in the same situation. Like, a lot of clubs are wanting to delay bringing the team back, bringing training back because of the furlough,
the money, this,
because as soon as you bring them back, then the furlough goes.
And we made that decision as a club.
Yeah.
Look, do we want to be a professional outfit, or do we want to be a Mickey Mouse outfit? And basically we'll bring them back a week before the season starts. We want to be professional. We're a football club, for fuck's sake. I've been saying this for months. We are one of 72 football clubs.
Right.
That's an honour.
Yeah.
If you take the Premier League, we're one of 92 clubs. I mean, we've got to act like that. This isn't small time here. So we're trying to act as professional as we can.
Any word on when the fixtures are going to be released then?
Yeah, we went through all of that when we had the meetings, and the start date of the 12th was meant to be announced last week, and it was put back to do with the Premier League. So I would guesstimate before the end of the month we'll finally have the start date, the 12th of September. I believe there's a League Cup game 5 days before that.
Okay.
So really football will be back on the 5th of September, in my opinion. The fixtures have to go in. They went through the system, and I said, listen, as long as it gives us a home game first, a home game on Boxing Day, and a home game at the end of the season, I might forgive the way we were fucked at the end of last season. You know what I mean? And as long as that derby against Northampton we have, you put it back till January for our home games.
Make sure that
gets through. That's $100,000 payday.
Right.
Again, I might forgive a little bit, but knowing that, we'll probably get shafted and all those things. Do you know what I mean? So the fixtures will be out. I would guesstimate the middle of August.
Okay, so you don't have, and this is a question that actually came in. You don't have any influence, or you can't ask for a specific game at a specific time.
It's a computer.
Yeah.
They use a system. They mention the name of the company that does it. They do it for the Prem. They do it for the league. No, there's no person you might have upset at the EFL who goes, I'm going to fuck Peterborough and I'm going to pull out such and such fixture. No, I think it goes into the system. I hope common sense prevails.
Yeah.
Get
the derby days over Christmas.
Because it's going to be hectic. You're going to be Saturday, all the way through the cup games. You have to prepare for that. And the fact there's no fans for the first month. Yeah. Again, I'd say most clubs would want their worst fixtures at home in the first month.
Yeah, you want to play away.
The worst.
Where's the furthest place for you to go?
For example, say Fleetwood bring 15, 20 fans.
Yeah.
So you want that in the first few weeks. Yeah. No disrespect to Fleetwood, and it's the same way around. If Peterborough got to Fleetwood, we'd probably only bring 50 fans. So they don't want to see us. Fleetwood wouldn't want to play Blackpool at home in the first 4 weeks because it's like a derby, and they'd lose a fortune. So there has to be some common sense element to it, you hope.
So the last one of the topics that I had in mind was kind of segueing from getting the season up and running to getting fans in the stadium. You kind of mentioned it maybe a month into the season.
I'm surprised we're not doing it with some fans at the start.
Yeah.
Because obviously, look, I think the UK's over it. There's going to be mini spikes, but if you look at your infections, I think you've pretty much been through it. You've rinsed it. You've probably done, without knowing it, the whole T-cell herd immunity thing, where most of the UK, a big percentage who are going to get it have got it. So I don't see, of course, there's going to be the usual media panic porn in the winter when there's a bad case of pneumonia and flu and a bit of COVID. Everyone will be freaking out. There'll be threats of lockdowns. I don't think the UK will lock down again, hopefully. I think they know that they go into lockdown again, it'll be funny. You're not coming back from that financially. Neither are people with livelihoods. Yeah. So, and I think now they've got better therapies. They're realising now what they were doing back in March to people. To what they're doing today.
More,
I think back in March they were throwing everyone on ventilators straight away. I spoke to a doctor in a hospital the other day, a friend of mine, and he said nearly everyone had gone into hospital were being stuck on ventilators. And you go on ventilators, it becomes very difficult to come off them. And now they have completely different therapies. So that whole thing's interesting, and that's where education is important with facts and figures. So I think the UK are going to be out the other side of it. There's going to be mini blow-ups. You'll have the usual media porn and headlines because they love all that crap. And I think Boris, he had a rough go of it. I think that frightened him a lot when he got it himself. And I think you probably see 25-30% of fans October. Before Christmas, probably up to 50. I would say into the new year, because you'll definitely have vaccines. I know everyone goes on about vaccines 2 years, 3 years, but there's 3 vaccines now. They're all competing. There is no doubt in my mind by November, healthcare workers, people at the front line, older people will get the vaccines first. And I think this thing's fucking dead by January. It's gone. So I would estimate January onwards. We budgeted for no fans till January. When we did our cash flow with our finance director, we said to her, we gave her 4 different parameters. We start with this, start with that, whatever. And we've gone with the one where there's no fans till January. So anything is gravy if we get fans in. And if we can announce to our fans next week, for sure, October onwards, you're back. We will sell an extra 2,000 season tickets. And we'll probably bring another 500-600 grand in. And that's really important to clubs. And that's why Boris, the government, the Football League all need to come out and tell us. We know you're piloting stuff, you're trial testing. Come out and say, for now, October the 1st, 30%. It's happening. It could change. It's happening.
Now, how do you select who those 30% are?
We'll be fine, because if we sell 4,000 season tickets,
yeah,
we would make it then.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the walk-up fan, away fans, will not be as relevant to this conversation. It will be a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
So it gives us the chance to go out and say, we've sold, I think, 2,600 so far.
Yeah.
So they're guaranteed a seat.
Yeah.
So we would turn around and say, guys, you want to get in there and buy more. Because right now, as it looks, we're only going to let season ticket holders in. There'll be no walk-up. So until, I reckon, towards Christmas and afterwards. So you need to go get your season ticket. And if you're someone sat at home right now and you've got your 300-400 quid in the bank and you're not in financial trouble like a lot of people are and whatever, and if you are, we'll help you. You go out and spend the money and buy a ticket. Buy the season ticket. It won't be long before you're sitting there watching games. You might miss the first 2, but you're going to be watching games. And there's going to be a lot of games.
It's going to be interesting for those that, where you have season ticket holder. The number of season ticket holders is close to the capacity of your stadium.
Of course.
How the heck do you work out?
Bradford would be the point in case, because they sell like 15,000. I always looked at Bradford like, what a sleeping giant.
You would get like 10 to 15 depending on
so their problem is your capacity is what, 25?
26. Yeah.
Right, so you're basically, you're going to have to start pulling straws. So if you sell 15, you can only get in 26. What's that? You can get 7,000 in?
Yeah, 30%? We're talking like 6,500,
right.
Let's say.
So you're going to have to go as at every other game.
Yeah.
So you 6,000 this Saturday, you 6,000 on Fortune Tuesday night, and so on. So that's a bit of a nightmare logistically.
I got to feel like you got to cap it perhaps. Let's say you got 6,500 that you capped at. Let's cap your season tickets at 13,000.
Yeah.
So you're going to get 1 in 2 games, and the other one's going to follow.
And as a fan, and the other thing as well is, and I don't want to sound horrible to fans, if clubs wanted to, they could raise the price of the season ticket
because now it's supply and demand.
And that sounds horrible. And look, for me personally, no word of a lie, I get emotional saying it, our fans have been magnificent. When we did the whole refund in the 5-6 games that everyone said you're never going to have to do, fucking liars. When we had to do that and whatever, and we gave them the option next year you could use it towards that season ticket and use it towards this, or you could donate it to the academy. The amount of people who donated it to the academy was tremendous. I mean, the appetite to help the football club was tremendous. Right now, we're getting all our stadium staff back to work next week, because the toilets haven't been cleaned since March.
Needs a good sweeping.
Yeah, and we have fans lining up, volunteering with all our safety officers and everything else who want to go in and help paint, clean, sweep for free. Now that is love. That's love, and no other industry in the world has that kind of love. You as a fan have so much affinity like you would for Bradford. Like, it's love. No matter what, whoever the owners are, the managers are, you will always love your football club, because it will never shit on you. The owners and managers might shit on you, give you a hard time, but the club will never shit on you itself. The very foundation of that football club is in your bones forever. It's
hard to explain to folks who don't know that what community means when it comes to a football club.
It's massive.
Yeah.
You're going to become a 20-day smoker, by the way. It is massive. I mean, massive. I mean, it's almost like it's a family member. The football club is like a member of your family. It is, through thick and thin. You don't discard your family. You don't turn your back on your family. You don't let your family down. Your football club is like a family member. And when they need you, you're there. And our fans have been fucking magnificent. I mean, I've spoken to loads of them. I've Zoom call with them. I've the older fans. They cannot do enough. I've had people come who moved away. I'm getting emotional talking about it. Who've moved away from Peterborough, who've contacted me and gone, I want to sponsor something. Give us anything.
I just want to contribute.
Give us a brick. Give us a stand. Give me anything. I got 600 quid. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then I just want to help the club. And the injustice of what happened to us made that feeling even stronger. So I really feel, and that's why it's really important to get fans back in, our fans next season, whether we win, lose or draw, will be closer to us than ever. And we as owners, myself, Jason, Randy, my partners, want to reward our fans. I don't know how other clubs feel, but when the time's right and what we can do, we're going to look after our fans like you've no idea. And we've already spoken about that. Like, we owe our fans big. Big. Massive.
Yeah, it's just interesting how, we all have different views of what success looks like.
Correct.
And when you're when you're not in the top 6 of the Premier League, success doesn't look like winning every single week. Correct. As much as it feels like crap when you lose. But
success could be Macclesfield football players getting paid on time. Success could be Barrow getting promoted from non-league after years ago, I think, getting shafted in the vote. Whenever that was, I read a great article on it. Success could be Huddersfield going from League One to the Premier League. Success could be Bournemouth over the last 10 years. Yeah. It doesn't always have to be about my beloved Liverpool winning a league title or a Champions League. The pyramid and the story of the Football League, that is the beauty, the passion, what it invokes in everybody out there as a football fan. It can be any little thing. Yeah. The Brentford story, fucking magnificent story. If they go up to the Premier League again, new stadium, that success that changes the fabric. I read today Coventry. They've done a deal with, I think, Warwick University. Okay. Is that a local university have given them a piece of land? Yeah. And they're going to build a stadium.
Probably Warwick. It's down the road.
Right. Yeah. Well, for every Coventry fan, that news today was probably even more important than winning the league. Yeah. Because now they're finally going to get a home again, and that's what they want. If you ask any fan, give me a promotion or give me a safe home to play in that we won't lose, I know where they vote.
Yeah. You know, you want something that, maybe this is just as, I don't know, it sounds like, getting old now. I know back in the day, it was all about results.
What is it now?
Now I feel like it's more about, I feel like I have a club that I'm connected to.
Correct.
That shares the same values that I do.
That's really important.
Investing and doing the right things and going in the right direction.
100%.
And, all those things that has a manager or players that want to be there.
And feel in sync with you.
Yeah.
And I kind of, people give me a lot of stick for being out there on social media and being a loudmouth. They've called me things from Simon Jordan to now I'm the League One Donald Trump. Not that there's any resemblance, and I wish I had the bank balance. All those trolls that come at you. Yeah. But early on when I bought the club, I wanted to be transparent and communicative, if that's the right word, with the fan base. Yeah. And I've done forums, I've fronted fans when things aren't going well. I don't shirk and I don't hide, and I never will. Because at the end of the day, I might own the football club with my partners, but really the club is the fans. Yeah. So if I turn on the fans, if I ignore the fans, if I don't front it, you'll see me. I front it when we lose. I'm on Twitter. If we win, I'm on Twitter. I've never changed. I'm not one of them who's a glory hunter.
Yeah, quiet when in bad times.
Because really, the substance of a real person is when things aren't going well. You see them at their best or their worst. Yeah. That's when you really see a person for who they are. And I believe I've said it to my kids, I'm one of those people where you see the best of me when the worst things can happen. That's when I come out my strongest. And I've been the same in football.
Now, I want to move on to an interesting question that we got. And I feel as a League Two supporter, probably a little bit ill. I don't know what the word is. Probably don't have the knowledge of League One that I should do. But the question was, what is your League One team of the year?
Ooh.
And I know we kind of went a little bit backwards and forwards.
Yeah, it was a tough one. Well, I obviously moaned the other day because the awards haven't been handed out yet. Yeah. And I'd emailed the EFL a couple of weeks ago, and their response was, "Oh shit, we hadn't thought about that yet." And I was kind of like, well, "That's typical." But I've got players who deserve to be rewarded for their seasons.
Now, are some of your players bonused on being in those as well?
Yeah, Ivan Toney, I think he gets 25 grand for his golden boot. Yeah. I'm sure he's been waiting for that check.
I'm sure, yeah.
So, so I've got League One. The goalie was a tough one. You put up here who scored, the people from who scored 442 from Sky.com. Yep. They're 11. You local newspaper journalist, Liverpool Echo, and you put the Athletic up, and you have all their 11 in there. Yep. So I was different. I didn't go for any of the choicing. I went for Chrissy Pym, my goalie, and I'll tell you why. He's joint clean sheets. He's about to win the Golden Gloves joint with someone else. I forget who it was. I think it might be the Wickham goalkeeper. But if you look at our fixtures, Christie in his first season, he's had 14 clean sheets so far. If you looked at what we had left, we were playing 7 of the bottom 9. I'd estimate he would have 18, 19 clean sheets, which in his first season in League One is magnificent. That would have also put him over the last 3 years the second most prolific goalkeeper for clean sheets in the Football League. So for me, and if you look at the level of opposition we've already played, where we've already played the Rotherhams,
the tougher, where he's going to come into attack a lot more.
Correct. Yeah. And you look at that achievement of him winning the Golden Gloves, statistically, I think he deserves to be number one on that team. And he's a young goalie.
And it's interesting when we look at others that were chosen across the board by, as we talked about, WhoScored.com through Sky and the journalists and the Athletic. It was a category where there wasn't a single clear winner, so I think that...
For me, Christy Pym. Yeah. The right back was easy for me. Some people have got like Luca Neen. No, it was Dabo at Coventry. Best right back for me. 2 centre halves, the Rotherham boy. Yeah. Done phenomenal. Rose at Coventry, I chose over Dickey. Yeah. Left back Jacobson was a fairy tale story at Wickham, and his age, and his level of performance. Right midfield Henry. Yeah. Central midfield, I went with Walsh at Coventry, and I chose Brannigan over Crooks and Barlaser. Barlaser, terrific player, but I went with Brannigan at Oxford because he scored twice against us, and he was very good.
That sticks in the memory.
It does, and I think when we hammered them 4-0, I think he just come back from an injury. He wasn't at his best. Now, if we'd signed Jack Taylor last summer, he would have been in that team of the year all day long. He came in January. He's the best central midfielder in League One by a mile. I went on the left with Curtis because of the statistics. The attacking midfielder is interesting. Everyone's got Maguire, other people, Marcus Maddison. And it's really funny I say that because obviously everyone knows I'm not in talking terms with the player. He's driven me mad. But by January, when he stopped playing for us and he moved on eventually, he'd had 9 goals and 6 assists in League One by January. To this day, that's still better than all the other attacking number 10s in the league. And if you look at the level of goals he scored against like Sunderland, against like MK Dons away, if you see some of the quality of the goals, forget about what he's like off the pitch, the quality he brings on the pitch. People don't like him, so they never vote him in the team. But he's the best number 10 in the league up till January. And nobody surpassed that. The Sammy Schmollix, if he'd spent the whole season with us, might have surpassed it. But for goals and assists, Maddison all day long. Up front, I went with Armand Gandalou at Blackpool and Ivan Toney. Mo Isa was unlucky because when we changed formation in January, he stopped playing. He only finished 1 goal behind Armand. He probably would have finished with 20 league goals, and it would have been Isa and Toney in that league team of the year all day long. And then manager of the year, you obviously have to go to, and it will hurt posh fans hearing me saying this, the Wigan manager. You know, for the job he's done. Regardless whether what happened with the playoffs, the points per goal, to get Wickham in the championship, no matter how they got there, he's the manager of the year. All day long.
What we'll have to do is we'll have to post this on Twitter so that everyone can take a look, and the ones that we're comparing them to as well.
100%. So that was my team of the year.
All right, into the trash.
Into the trash. And Golden Boot winner, Ivan Toney. Golden Gloves winner, Christy Pym. There you go. 2 of the posh players.
Well,
and finally, League One player of the year, which you get a vote top 3, is Ivan Toney.
I got to imagine.
All day long. They've got to give that award out. He is. So we've won 3 awards. Do you know what I mean? And like I said to you, it would have been a golden season for us.
Yeah, and when you looked at, so the one that was done on using data was the whoscored.com, and it had the different ratings of each one of the players and the positions. Ivan Toney was far and above any other player that's on that.
He's a Premier League player, miles ahead. So that's that, you know what I mean? But yeah, so there's your team of the year.
All right, well, let's just go a couple more questions before we wrap up. I have a couple of questions that are actually specific to Peterborough, so we don't want to let...
Sure. And look, for fans out there and for people out there, it's really important to realise this isn't a Peterborough podcast.
Right.
This is a podcast about football, sports, politics, life, money. Obviously from a business perspective, I created a large business very young, made a lot of money, made the Sunday Times Rich List twice before 30. I've done a lot of things, and I did a YouTube channel on business videos. And typical me, got too busy, wasn't consistent, but 25,000 people were watching. And I got a lot of questions all the time about how did you do this, how did you do that. For anyone out there who wants us to have a business segment for 15 minutes in future podcasts, send your questions in to me.
Because we'd love to do that.
Absolutely. How do you start a business? You run a business that's in trouble. What would I do? And look, at the end of the day, you can't sue me for the advice I give. It's all advice. You've got to take the decisions yourself and be responsible. But I like to think, at the age of 44, having been pretty successful in my life and bought a football club at 29, I can give advice. And a lot of my advice is based on old-fashioned ethics of working really hard. But I've navigated some real shit as well over my years. I've made money, I've lost money, I've built businesses, I've lost businesses, I've had horrible things happen, and I've come through the other end. And I'm happy to share those experiences, but I don't want to bore people sharing them without it being questioned. So throw questions in if you want to have a little business segment in a podcast to talk about those things that are important to you.
Yeah, no, we'd definitely love to do that.
Definitely.
And, I think that as more and more folks get to listen to the conversations and they see kind of where we're heading, definitely I hope that we get more questions on that.
Look, some people's opinions can be like a real acquired taste. I know I upset people with all my COVID stuff. I get into rows with people. I did about schooling this week because I believe my kids should be in school, and it's not for everyone. But the beauty about freedom of speech is it's an opinion. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone has one. And just because somebody disagrees with you, you don't have to get vicious. And there's too much viciousness nowadays with that, the cancel culture. If you like Donald Trump, you're a racist. If you don't cancel this person and have a go at them for something they said or a mistake they made when they were 14, blah, blah, blah. That's the world we fucking live in. That's the world our children have to navigate. You know, where an Instagram post you might like or put up at 15 can be brought back and thrown in your face when you're 27 and your career's over. Yeah. That shouldn't be right. That has to stop.
Yeah, and you're living in a different world.
You're living in a completely different world 12 years later. And I said this before last week when I spoke about Barstool, you know, or Barstool Sports and whatever else, and the guy who owns it, that the shit you do when you're younger, to be judged on that, we're allowed mature, we're allowed change opinion, we're allowed change beliefs. You know, we're not breaking the law by having an opinion, you know, and that's where I always come from that perspective. We're very different in our beliefs, but it doesn't mean we can't have a good debate about it.
Well, it's all about, you know, being open-minded.
Correct.
And I think that's part of the problem right now.
My business bits of advice, an open mind is like a parachute. If it's not open, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That's what I used to say.
No, I mean, that's how you got to think, and that's how... It's really hard to think that way at the moment because you're just being assaulted by information from all different sides.
You're being assaulted by the politicization. It's the left, it's the right, it's the this, it's the that. It's just non-stop. Yeah. It's non-stop. I might be a conservative, you might be a liberal. It doesn't mean we can't share bread and we can't break bread together and have a drink and have a difference of opinion or fundamental difference in life or how we bring up our children. I respect your right to do what you want to do. And you have to respect my right to do what I want to do. We're not breaking any laws, we're not doing any harm to people. And I know we live in a very fractured society and world, but again, you should be allowed, like people are allowed to protest safely and do it right. These are one of the fundamental things you're allowed to do. That's just life for you, you know what I mean? And for people not to be allowed to have an opinion, to be shouted down when they have an opinion, it's just outrageous, and it's indicative of what goes on nowadays.
Well, I'm looking forward to some of those debates.
Absolutely. Listen, me too. I got into one yesterday with my pal in California. He's a super lib. Phil, big shout out to him, and I love him to bits. And we have very different views on sending kids back to school, but it doesn't mean I don't love him. And after the debate on Twitter, he texted me. I said, "Listen, I'll buy you a drink 5 minutes later." It's just, I don't hold grudges. Yeah. Too many people take things too seriously and hold grudges. Do you know what I mean? So it's just that's just the world we live in.
Well, let's get into these couple of Peterborough questions. Sure. Let's see. We had from Cloudstrife via Twitter. Any update on progress with the new ground? And, you know, has coronavirus impacted that at all? Yeah,
everything's been put back a little bit, you know, time-wise, because obviously there's finance involved, there's money involved, and when there's a pandemic and there's a mini recession and there's an economic, you know, impact from that, we're still buying the ground we're in. Yeah. That deal's going ahead. It's taking time. Jason and Randy worked very hard on that. The new ground's still full steam ahead. It's just going to be back a year. Yeah. But, you know, as far as we're concerned, you know, it's business as usual. And we're back in step, and we think those things are going to happen.
Yeah, and the follow-up question to that is from Andy Smith.
Sure.
Andy asked, why do you think it's a good idea to separate ownership of the ground from the football club?
Yeah, it's something I've always been a big believer in, and if you see what's happening now with the finances involved, I'll tell you why. If Peterborough United owned the ground, and Peterborough United went into administration, guess what gets sold to pay the debts? That's the big asset. Correct. If Peterborough United's ground is owned separately by owners and owns, you know, and it's away from the football club, if the football club fails to deliver, it won't impact the ground, as long as they have a place to play and stay. So I always think people attaching debt to the ground is not a good idea. So the idea being is also, we as owners raise the money to buy the ground. It's our own personal money. Yep. We're taking mortgages and debts on. We don't want to put those mortgages and debts on the football club. And the other thing is, it's our money going on the ground. Yep. So I've never done anything to show our fans the worry about ownership of the ground. We will always have a place to play. I've always done it the right way. And as a club, we've been paying ridiculous rent for too long. That will be readjusted as well. Yeah. So many good things happen. People get too hung up on the argument about ground ownership and who owns the ground and who doesn't. As long as the club has a place to stay and there's an agreement in place that the club is 50 years, 100 years, so you don't find yourself in a Coventry situation, it's fine.
Yeah, and that was kind of my follow-up. You know, I don't want to be bringing my point of reference all the time back to Bradford and our experiences. You know, we have an owner of the ground different from the football club, and that happened during the last time we went through administration as a way to get cash in the door, you know, fire sale of the asset.
I get it.
You know, how...
It's not ideal.
Are there things that you can put, controls, governance, that make sure that doesn't happen?
Right, what you can do, obviously, is, well, look, the council always put covenants on grounds, so you can't, someone can't come in. The only way we could ever do anything with our current ground is if we move it to a new ground. Right. And that's part of the rule. And that's fine. That's an agreement we're all on board with, and that's the way it should be. But at the end of the day, it's the things that can be put in place. I know Oxford have a landlord who, like, you know, really prohibits them on stuff they can do. They pay a lot of rent. You know, the revenue they get, some of it goes here and there. You don't want to be in that position. So what you want to make sure is your club has a good lease with the owner of the ground that protects the club, that they can't get thrown out, that the rent can't go up ridiculous amounts, that the owner is not taking big percentages of the commercial revenue or the match day revenue out. Of course you can have things in place like that. But this kind of thing out there that, oh my God, these people who own the grounds, they don't own, and clubs are in trouble. How many of the 72 clubs have not been able to play at their ground? Bar Coventry.
Yeah.
Not too many other clubs. So it can be overblown sometimes as well.
Well, Darragh, I know it's about time for us to wrap up.
Sure, that was quick.
We've got lots of... we're an hour in, but we've got lots of other questions, but let's leave them till next week.
Phil, been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And again, a final message saying to the fans out there, look, this is a new format for the show. We've been offered a couple of sponsorship deals so far. Anyone out there who wants to basically endorse or sponsor their business or advertise during the show, we're good in the charts. We get a good following. It's a good demographic of people that listen. A lot of journalists, a lot of people in the business and the industry listen. Email me at realdarragh, MacAnthony@gmail.com or Phil to...
Yeah, so with the email address that we have is contact@hardtruthfootball.com.
Yep, perfect.
That will go straight to me.
There you go. And
or on Twitter.
Sign you up. Or on Twitter.
You're DMac102. I'm P. Ideson, P-I-D-E-S-O-N, with your questions as well.
Correct. And to any journalists out there listening, because I know a few of you love to stalk my podcast and then write articles, buyer beware. Don't come at me with ridiculous headlines, because you're going to get the hard truth from me on that, and I'm going to come for you. So there you go. And I've got great lawyers as well, by the way. So God bless you all out there. I hope you're all staying safe. I hope everyone's living their life as best they can in the UK. I'll be over there soon, and I can't wait to see you all. To the posh fans listening and the football fans out there, League 1, League 2 football is going to be back very soon. You're going to be able to watch your beloved clubs again. And we're finally getting through this.
All right, we'll talk to everybody next week.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.